Hey everyone, welcome to Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I'm your host, Eric Oberembt. This is the podcast where the only requirement to be a guest is that you are being authentic to who you are. If you're not, I'll shut it down and I'll ask you to leave. Remember, be authentic or get the fuck out. Hey everybody, Eric Oberembt here with Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out again. We're here in Salt Lake City, and I have been given the honor of bringing my friend in, and this is our first girl podcast, and I am so excited that you are my first guest as a woman to be on the podcast, and I really appreciate you being here. Alex, do you go Hall?
I do Hogan-Hall to cover all my bases.
Okay, so Alex Hogan-Hall. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I know you said this morning you started listening to a little bit of the podcast and trying to get a feel of, what it's about. It's unscripted. I've just got some notes of, about you and whatever. But the idea of why we started this was I wanted to, honestly, it was selfish in that I wanted to have an opportunity to sit down with people that I might not normally get an opportunity to just sit down and have a real cool conversation with, right? We like to say that it's a comfortable place to have uncomfortable conversations. So if some shit comes up like that, I love talking about that because I think that that's what people connect with. And they can figure out how to maybe, implement something like that into their life. If anybody had a struggle or whatever, or how they change their life, for the better, whatever that means, for you or whatnot. And so, again, just another reason that I'm super excited that you're here. Now, I will say, we talked about this earlier. I had a call with Brandon and he gave me some notes because I wanted to know a little bit more about your background before I started talking to you. And the first thing that he told me that I didn't know about you was that you played rugby.
Yes, I did.
And I want to know more about Alex playing rugby and how aggressive and if you hurt people.
Oh, of course I did.
I want to hear about that.
Okay, I've got a couple good rugby stories.
Okay. When did you start playing?
So I started in college.
Okay.
I did a lot of sports, but I did soccer my whole life.
Okay.
And I was always like I played basketball and I'd foul out every game. And I did softball and I played catcher because my dad taught me how, if someone's sliding into home base, you can get under and flip them over your shoulder kind of thing.
Yep.
So I've had an aggressive sporting streak.
Yep.
And then the college I went to didn't have a really organized sports situation. So I was thinking about trying out for the girls soccer team. It was D2. And then I met one of the girls on the rugby team. And really she was just like, it's way less structured. We can party on the weekends and you don't get in trouble. And I was like, perfect. That sounds cool. I'll try out. And if you are slow in soccer, I always played defense and I was one of the slower girls, you're probably fast in rugby because you're just dealing with some bigger chicks out there.
Right.
So, I got into it right away and I absolutely loved it and was a total natural at it somehow.
That's awesome.
And so I was captain my last year of college on the team. But I would say a couple of my favorite stories. My best one is, there's this thing in rugby. When you score, it's called a try. And in order to score, you have to touch the ball down to the grass. It has to physically hit the grass in order for it to count.
Okay.
So you can scoop the ball with your hands, and as long as the ball only hits your hands, and if, some play gets called, whatever, you guys can break up, then it doesn't count as a score. So we were playing in this tournament down in Florida, and I scooped a ball that this girl was coming in for a try for, and I used to wear my hair in this big high ponytail braid all the way back. So this girl, I could feel someone on my back, and this girl was holding me by the hair and punching me in the back of the head. So they called a foul, and we had to break up the play. And I didn't think twice about it because you got your adrenaline pumping and stuff. I didn't think anything of it. And then afterwards, the coach came up with the girl who looked so guilty and sad. And she couldn't speak English. She was from France. And he was like, we just wanted to come apologize because the rules in France, you're allowed to do that. You can just hit someone.
Oh, really?
It doesn't matter at all. So she didn't realize she was doing anything wrong to you. So rugby was super fun. And then my nickname that I got a couple years in was Spider Monkey because same thing. You're not really thinking, adrenaline's running. And I played fullback one season, which is you're all the way kind of in the back. You're the last safety.
Yeah.
So someone's kind of running through for a try. I'm the only person around, so I'm catching up to her. And I just didn't think and jumped on her back to tackle her and brought her down, which is also a foul. But yeah, I was spider monkey on my college rugby team.
So did you quit after college?
Well, the typical recovery period for me in college was probably like the full week before your next game.
Oh, wow.
Because you kick your ass that day.
Yeah.
And then that night it's customary to party with the other rugby team.
Yep.
So there's all these like games you play and songs you sing and everyone's drinking beer out of their cleats and crap. Like it's just ridiculous. So yeah, you're just bruised up, you're dislocating and relocating. It's weird. So I never got into it after college, but
interesting.
Probably for the best for my body, honestly.
That's funny. That's awesome. We were actually just talking before the podcast started about how some of the best lessons in life and in business and everything, I feel like I learned from playing organized sports.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that.
Right? Like just the coaches and the teamwork and the discipline and the camaraderie and just everything, it just all translates not only to life, but like to business. And if you're running a business and whatever, just the stuff that you learn from that, I think is like, it's just, I think it's better than any training.
I seriously agree, because you have to learn how to be like selfless for your teammates. Yep. You have to learn communication, you have to like do hard things. And I think the biggest thing would be, that discipline. Mm-hmm. Like nobody forgets when they did 2-day practices in high school for their football team or soccer or whatever, and how awful it was at the time, but how much you feel like you got that reward out of it and then some later on in life, So I talk a lot to like companies I'm working with or reps I'm working with about that type of stuff, because it's like, think about this as your opportunity to get back into something like that. You're going to be disciplined, and if you work really hard, it's going to suck while you're doing it. And afterwards, you're going to look at, how much you've grown and the personal development and the money you've made, and it's a totally different ballgame for you.
So speaking of that, of work, I should have started with this a little earlier, but tell everybody kind of what you're doing now, and we'll start back in the beginning, but what are you doing now, and what are you running? And you're kind of a fucking boss.
I got lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, you're a busy gal.
Yeah, so I am both chairman of the board and then chief marketing officer for True Power, a company we started, which was a merger of several clients back in June of this past year. And then Brandon and I are working with one other person on a consulting and training video situation we call Shut the Fluff Up.
Yep.
So no fluff, just content. There's so much stuff out there with business consulting and all the things we do that's just very fluffy and
everybody's
motivational.
a fucking consultant, aren't they?
Everyone's a consultant, dude. So like I feel like there's so much to say about like how much, if you can cut out all of that crap and you're left with some actual good content, like that's kind of what we're striving to be.
That's awesome.
So we started that up, got a couple clients, and I'm finishing up my MBA this year.
I heard that as well. So I want to go back to that a little bit. That the other thing that I learned about you was that you started with a marine biology degree. Is that correct?
It is.
And I also heard that when that started, you were a bit of a hippie.
Oh, 100%. And then you see my husband walking around the convention today in his Let's Go Brandon shirt.
Yes.
So see how far I've come.
Yes. That's what I want to talk about that, because he said you've done like just a complete 180, like of just how you've changed, evolved, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Not that it's good, bad, or otherwise, but like, it's just interesting to see that story, you know what I mean? That lineage of like how somebody will change from one thing kind of to another as they evolve, whether it's in business or whatever.
Oh yeah. And I think the biggest thing I like that I've kind of switched like that, because it's given me such a good perspective on other people.
Right.
Like, my husband's always been Republican, so doesn't see as much of the other perspective. But yeah, in college, it was like you're learning all of these things kind of for the first time. I'm learning about the problems with the environment. I'm very, very pro anything we can do to fix climate change. Whether it's our fault or not, I don't fucking care.
Right.
I just want it to be fixed so that we can keep our planet.
Right.
So I did a lot of like grassroots organizing stuff in college. That's how I got into door knocking, because we used to go door to door to get petitions signed for solar legislation in Florida and stuff. And yeah, doing a marine biology degree, it was like I'm doing a lot of ocean conservation stuff. So it was just kind of natural to fall into that. So yeah, I was pretty hippie. And I would still say I'm pretty centered. Like I just feel like I can see the bullshit on both sides a little bit better. So I stay away from it.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing is like, I as we all get so much more polarized these days, which is like, you know, all the social media algorithms and whatnot doing that to you. I like trying to pull people back to the center.
Yes.
I like we're all approaching this with good intentions and trying to do something great for our family and our community. Yep. And so we're all fighting towards the same goal. So I don't know, just to think that like if your views are so polarizing that you can't even have a conversation with someone on the other side of the fence, I'm like, you guys are on the same fucking page. You just need to like center yourselves out.
Yeah, 100%. It's refreshing to hear that, because I talk about that a lot in my personal life, and I don't talk politics and bullshit and whatever on social media, you know, as a general rule. And but most people assume they know who I am and what I believe and blah blah blah. And when we actually sit down and have a conversation, they're like, "Oh shit, you're actually fairly open-minded and like listen to other people's point of views." And even if I disagree, I'm not a prick about it. It's just like, no, I don't like, that's just not me. You know what I mean? Like, but I can understand it, and I can empathy. Like that's something that has completely gone away in the world today, is empathy and understanding that like everybody is an actual human being and has beliefs that they truly believe. And just because you think they're wrong doesn't mean that they think, you know what I'm saying? Like,
totally.
And that drives me crazy. So it's actually really nice to talk to somebody that has that same, you know, frame of mind, you know, to slow down a little bit and realize that everybody can be an individual, and it doesn't mean that we have to hate each other. That's what I'm tired of. I'm tired of all the hate and the bullshit that's out there. And I do, to your point, I think that a lot of it is because of fucking algorithms.
Yes. Have you seen, it was after that Facebook documentary thing came out. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I listened to a couple podcasts from the guys that did that, documentary. Called? Like the Facebook dilemma, maybe? Or the social dilemma? Social dilemma. That's what it is.
Yep.
So after that came out, I was listening to a podcast that those guys did, and the algorithm is like literally set up to continue pushing whatever is getting the biggest rise out of its viewer, which is going to end up polarizing people more and more.
Right.
So it's inherently creating this polarization in our country, and us being a democracy where we're okay with free speech across the board. It's like this recipe for disaster, because we have just no control. It's like this runaway train in both directions.
Yeah.
So I love trying to like talk to people and challenge the other side. And I still have a ton of like, you know, very left friends, but they're all very open-minded and they're empathetic.
Right.
Right. Those are like the two things that if that stuff is woven into our conversations, we can talk about anything.
Right.
And we know that both of us are coming from the understanding of like, I have good intentions, you have good intentions. We're just trying to kind of figure it out and see what we resonate with.
The way that it was explained to me when I was a kid, right? When I was a kid and we didn't have social media and we didn't have all the bullshit, I remember being a kid and asking, whether it was my grandpa or whoever it was, like, I didn't understand, you know, like the people running for president, you know, or whatever. And I was like, well, what's the, you know, like, why does he think that and he thinks that? And it was explained to me back then that they both care about the country. They just think that we can get to the same place in a different way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right?
It's such a good way to teach your kids.
But that's so gone. That's so gone now. Now it is, if you don't believe that, you're the devil.
Yeah.
You're evil, you're wrong, and you're going to bring the whole institution down.
So much fear and like emotion around it all too. It's been weird.
It drives me crazy.
Me too.
Drives me absolutely nuts. Okay, we'll get off of politics for a while. Okay, so I do want to talk about, I want to talk about this. Tell me about Soul Sisters.
Okay. By the way, can I just say I love that you and my husband had like a sneaky call before we got started here. And neither of you would tell me the topics.
No. And you know what? And I'll be honest. I'm being intentional about trying to make these podcasts better because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing when I started, right? And I don't listen to a lot of podcasts because honestly, I don't have time. But one of the podcasts that I do listen to is I love listening to Ed Milet. Okay. And the one thing that I get from him is that he's one of the most well-prepared people in the space, in that when he meets with somebody for the first time, if he's never met him, it's like he already knew him because he did at least enough research on them to show that he cared about it. And so like moving forward, that has been my intention, is like, I want to at least know enough about the person that I can have a conversation about things that they give a shit about.
Yeah, like pull out the real personal stuff.
Yeah, like that they actually care, that they're passionate about. Because that's what people want to talk about. You don't want to talk about what I'm passionate about. You don't want to sit here and talk about roofers and recovery. You know what I mean? Like people want to talk about what they care about.
Sure.
And that's what I want to hear about.
Yeah.
And that's what people want to hear about. So
I love that.
Anyway, I was told that that's something that you're passionate about, and I want to hear more about that.
Yes. So Soul Sisters is short for Soliciting Sisters. To create.
That sounds scandalous.
Well, we're in door to door. We solicit. So yep, that's my women's community that I've been working on a little bit on the side. I am really passionate about being a woman in a very male-dominated space.
Yes.
I've been that way. I've always gotten along better with guys. Most of my friends have been, guy friends of mine and stuff. So I think getting into the door-to-door industry, it was rocky for me too. But I see so much potential for people. Like, I don't know nearly as many people with as little of like a native skill set, if you will, that are making as much money as they do in door to door.
Sure.
Like I know guys that have half of my IQ that would run circles around me on the doors and make millions of dollars. And the fact that we have that opportunity is amazing.
Yeah.
And I hate that it feels so inaccessible for women right now. And I don't think it's intentional. No men have bad intentions about not having girls on their team. But I think that it's just this like kind of unknown on how to bring women into the space, how to help get them into mentorship and stuff. Exactly. It's just kind of like, how do I like DM a girl on Instagram without being creepy?
Yes.
That stuff's a real
like
thing.
literally we were trying to recruit women.
Yeah.
Lexi asked me about this. We were driving around the car and she's like, why don't you have any women selling for you? I'm like, it's fucking hard. Like it's hard to get. And I'll never forget, we had an ad out and we had a couple of women call in to interview and my sales manager calls them back, not even thinking, because like he'll have this conversation with a guy.
Yeah.
Right. And he'll be like, so how old are you and where do you live?
And the girls were like,
and they're like,
no.
oh, I think I called the wrong number. And I'm like, dude, you can't fucking say that. Like, come on. You got to realize who you're talking to. Like, if I heard that on the other line and I was a female, I'd be like, what are you going to, you know what I mean? Like, that's awful. But anyway, go on. Because I do want to know more about that, because why do you think that it is so difficult? Like, what barriers do we need to break down, or what do we need to do better?
I mean, I think a big thing is like, if you are not intentionally building every facet of like your culture and how you operate as a company, you inherently, it's not like those parts don't exist. They're just unintentionally being built in a way maybe you don't agree with. So I think that the way that like the overall door-to-door culture has formed is there's a lot of ethical problems in it. There's not a ton of support for new hires when they come on board. It's a lot of like, here's a shirt that's 2 sizes too big. Get out on the doors. I'm going to slap your ass on the way out. Good luck to you. And like, maybe they'll stick, maybe they won't. Sloppiness and all of those things. So that's the type of stuff that if a woman is trying to get into a new career, like there's a lot of unknowns, and we're probably a little more risk averse than guys might be naturally. So to think about it, if I'm getting into a potentially unsafe situation, not necessarily because the guy's on my team, but I'm knocking doors, like, I don't know a single woman that hasn't run into something sketchy, knocking doors on their own. And there's plenty of ways around it.
Man,
it's not
I didn't even think
overall.
about that.
Yeah. So we just sent out. So
Jesus, how dumb am I? Like, I literally never thought about that. No, I never thought about that. That like, it would be unsafe and awkward to knock on someone's door as a female. Like, anything could happen.
Yeah, and most people haven't had something bad happen, but like I just sent out, I did 100 boxes for 100 women in the space, and in the box it was like like Soul Sisters journal and a fanny pack, and then it was pepper spray and a rape whistle. And I just wanted to send it with the message of like, you might be one girl on your team, but you're part of a much bigger and growing community. Like, you're paving the way for us. You're amazing. Keep going, sort of thing.
Awesome.
And thank you. So those just hit. They like started arriving yesterday. So it's been cool. Like the girls at D2D-Con all have them and stuff. But in that box, like even just with Brandon, I was, I'm sending voice messages one day in the car to all of, our friends that own door-to-door businesses and stuff. I'm just checking in with people. Hey, do you have any girls that this would mean a lot to them? here's what's in it. And he's like, you can't keep saying rape whistle. It's freaking me out right now. I was like, I can call it an emergency whistle, but it stemmed this conversation of like, he was like, you're making it sound like it's this big deal to overcome. And I was like, well, if you don't talk about it at all, it's not making the problem go away. It's just then girls run into it and they don't expect it. Yep. They don't think that there's a system to get around it. So instead it's like, we had a code for like a bracelet that GPS tracks you for safety, little things like that. So like if you've got a little pepper spray on your keychain, it's not like you have to be constantly, swivel heading in your neighborhood expecting someone to rob you. But if you're in a house and something weird happens, you know what to do.
The first thing that I thought was like, I'm not going to lead with, we'll give you a rape whistle.
Yeah. Right.
Because I think they'd run out the door. But that's amazing. Literally just this 5 minutes of conversation, like opened my eyes to why it's so hard to recruit sometimes, because I can't put myself in that position.
Yeah. So I think it's that, like you're better at recruiting people when you understand what they need specifically. And so I'm sure that's a barrier for guys recruiting women. You don't know exactly what they want in a job, but a lot of that can be solved by just asking too, Like I think we overstep that stuff or overlook it in the recruiting process. I mean,
we're dumb though. We're just dumb guys that don't know to ask those questions. Like we have to be taught that.
Well, that's a good recruiting practice though,
Yeah, but I mean, we have to be taught that. Like we're stupid. I mean, I own the company and I find myself fairly intelligent, but I'm an idiot. Like I didn't think of any of this shit.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fair. So I think having a system for safety. So when it comes up, you're not talking about it with fear mongering, but you're like addressing it. And it's like, if you're going in a home, text one of us or share your location or something, like check back in when you're done sort of thing. Safety is a big one. Support's a big one. Yeah. If I'm switching into a different industry and I'm worried about being commission only, I might feel okay if I knew that I had someone to reach out to that was going to be there for me, specific training. Mm-hmm. But a lot of companies don't focus on that like new hire experience very well. You don't put yourself back in the shoes of someone that's just starting in a brand new job and a new career. Yeah. And if you did, you'd think through how much more that training means. But like if a girl just got dropped off in an unknown neighborhood and was like, hey, good luck, see you at 8:00. Right. That girl's probably not coming back the next day, where you might have a couple guys that actually do. Right. So it's little things like that if we can like make that new hire experience a little bit more inviting, I think it's easy to get more women into this space.
I mean, I want to work for you now. I'm not going to lie. I mean,
that's the plan,
Okay. Last thing. The last thing that I was told that I think is interesting is that I found out that you're a crazy cat lady.
I am. 100%.
That's hilarious. You have like 97 cats. Do you think they'll eat you when you die?
I have 2 cats, and I would say my dog would eat me before the cats would.
Really?
Honestly.
You think so?
She's a little more aggressive.
Okay.
They're smaller.
Okay.
But yeah, I freaking love cats. I grew up with cats. I didn't grow up with any dogs, and we always adopted, and I had like the most like angel baby cats. Like all of my cats have always been perfect. Yeah. All the people that are like, my cat sucks, he just like bites me all the time. It's always this like crotchety old cat that you've never gotten along with if you don't like cats. Right. But mine have been awesome. And we've got 2 cats now, and Brandon's absolutely a crazy cat guy too.
So that was going to be my next question is, does Brandon like the cats too, or is it just you?
So,
or does he pretend to like the cats?
He loves the cats, but when we were first getting them, I wanted to get one cat that was like special needs in some way. Because I was just like, he's probably not going to get adopted the same way. I wanted a special needs cat. Jesus. I grew up with a special needs cat. He was my favorite. Yeah. So we found this cat that had one eye, and I was doing all the shopping for the cat. So I'm like talking to shelters and stuff. So they send me this cat. They're like, he's super friendly. You said you want to get multiple cats. Like, he loves other cats. Yeah. He's great to get along with. And his name's One-Eyed Willie. He lost his eye like with an eye infection as a kitten. Gosh. Brandon hears that I'm adopting. I like went and saw him and was like, this is my cat. Yeah. Already signed the adoption papers. And then I come home and I tell Brandon, like, hey, we're getting a one-eyed cat.
A one-eyed cat.
So he's telling everyone, like, this fucking cat that Alex found. But he's so awesome. Brandon loves the cat so much. He's such a big softie for animals. So
I can see that.
Yep,
he's got the tough persona, and then he cries probably at home when he tells stories. And, it's funny.
I won't tell.
No. Okay, so last question. And this just kind of goes with the theme of the podcast. And like, I usually ask this at the beginning, but I like to hear, obviously the podcast is called Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. And the reason that I named it that, is actually, do you know the story? Were you in Idaho when I broke my arm?
No.
With Sam?
Tell me about it.
I was with Sam in Idaho at a retreat, and he was driving the fucking...
Oh, the razors.
Yes, and he went head on into somebody going 40 miles an hour, and I snapped my ulna in half and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so we were back at the house, and one of the exercises that we had to do was we had to pick a word. I don't remember. And so somebody in my group, and you had all the words start with an A or something like that. And one of the words that somebody else in my group got was authentic. And I got some dumb fucking word. And I looked at homeboy and I was like, sorry, man, that's mine. He's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you didn't say we could trade. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. That's my word because that's me and I'm taking it. And he was like, okay. And so I had to do this like 5-minute like little presentation thing on being authentic and whatever. And ever since that, I didn't realize how important I think that it is not only in life, but in business, in getting people to follow you, you know, like to be part of your team and to want to work for you. And I kind of I like to ask how you see that in life and business and how you use authenticity, you know, in your office, in your space, or in your life.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question.
Do you pretend to be somebody else at work than you are at home?
No, I will not always say exactly what I'm thinking about a person if I think they're being an idiot in the moment.
Right.
If I think that's going to work out better.
Yeah, no, and I don't mean authenticity like that. I just mean you not pretending to be someone else.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It gives me a lot of anxiety to not be myself. Like if I have unexpressed emotions or something, like me and my business partners, I had some unexpressed thoughts and feelings that I had been holding back on because I didn't want to cause that big of a fuss and I didn't think they were going to care, blah, blah, blah. I didn't think it'd be received well. But just this week I went into town and started my conversation with like, guys, we got to cut the bullshit. And I felt so much better afterwards. So I have to, I feel, in order to just like live my life and not be consumed by anxiety.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
people respond to it.
They respond to it so well.
Right.
I mean, I've worked really hard to be pretty good at communication too. Like I prioritize that and I think it helps me be authentic because I feel like I can express how I'm feeling or whatever. And it's normally not in a way that's going to cause conflict. Like someone can, you know, see me where I'm at, meet me where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, Brandon has called me like the hand of justice in the past when it comes to our work stuff because I hold myself to a super high standard, but I hold everyone I'm around to a really high standard too. Like if I'm going to be a partner, if we're peers, I expect you to be at least putting in the same type of effort that I am for us to meet our goals together. And I have no problem calling people out on that stuff. So it's caused, and you know, usually being the one woman in the room when we do executive stuff causes me to get a different reaction. Like guys won't kind of respond as aggressively to me if I do it. So I think that's probably also why it works out pretty well.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's such a big deal. And especially in like an industry like ours, just walking around the room today, I felt really good about, and it was funny, we were doing the podcast today because I was thinking about the authenticity piece and how if I hadn't been so intentional about my authenticity and staying honest and having good relationships with people, or at least if we're ending on a decent note, like all of that stuff, then I would have had a ton of anxiety trying to walk around today, like waiting for someone to pop out behind a booth and have some, you know, beef with me or whatever. Yeah. But it's nice feeling like I've made a ton of genuine relationships and I'm from New Jersey too. Like we are very authentic from New Jersey and I didn't even think about that. But like, you know exactly what you get with every human being that you talk to around there. If you're in a deli and you catch with someone, like whatever, doesn't matter. You're at a sports, like the number of times we've gotten in like big, like we're both cussing at each other fights at like a Phillies sports game or something just to like be friends and, you know, cheers later or whatever is so often. And coming out to the West Coast, I've noticed people are like, they're nicer than Jersey people for sure on face value, but they might not, I don't know where I stand with them.
Right.
So I've got this like,
they may or may not be nicer.
That's true.
Right. They may or may not be. They might just be full of shit and you think they're being
Well, that's
nice.
the thing. They're nice they're like nice, but they're not like friendly.
Right.
Is what I'm like pegging it as, I guess.
Yep.
It's like this surface level thing.
Yep.
But yeah, so I like coming out here, all of a sudden I realized how big of a value that was for me too. Like if I don't know where I stand with someone, I just feel like I'm untethered in my relationship with you.
Right.
So
you can't have a relationship with them.
You can't. So I've just been able to be more and more intentional about like what relationships am I continuing, and the ones I choose to continue and to foster and work on are the ones that I know where I stand. I know I'll always know, and whether we're angry at each other, we're going to address it, we're going to make up, and we can get back to living our lives. So yeah, it's been huge for me.
Okay, so the last thing that we always do before we close is I always give the guest an opportunity, if there's anything that I missed or anything that you kind of want that maybe was on your mind that you want to leave them with, because nobody gives a shit about me. If there's anything that like, and whether it was, you know, soul sisters or females in the industry or being a hippie, I don't know, whatever it is. But if there's anything that you'd like to leave everybody with, like the floor is yours.
Ooh. I mean, yeah, maybe I'll push the Soul Sisters stuff a little bit. Okay. I think I'm still defining how to show up and like stake my claim on being a top woman in my space. That feels like there's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes with that.
Sure.
So bear with me. But I guess with the Soul Sister stuff, I care about building a community where women feel like safe to collaborate outside of your company borders, learn from each other, build friendships that can last. And because I never really had mentorship when I first got into our industry. I had great, my managers cared about people and they cared about me, but they just like didn't know how to operate. They were married, so they felt weird dragging me out to area with them on this other woman in the car or whatever.
Right.
So I just felt kind of neglected with that stuff. And for a long time, I was seeking out that mentorship and angry that I didn't have it, until I realized that it's more about finding people that I can resonate with, that I can like go through my journey together with. So that's kind of what I want to build and what I want to promote, whether you're part of Soul Sisters or not. I just want to have that for women.
Is there a website for that yet?
So we've got an Instagram, and if you follow on that, I'll be launching a couple surprises this quarter that women can get involved with. How do they spell it? It is weare.soulsisters on Instagram. SOL. Yep. Or you can follow me at I am Alexandra Hall, and it's on there too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am so happy that you made the time to come hang out with me in my creepy hotel room to do our podcast today. But I'm so happy that you made it. Thank you very much. We're going to end the podcast like we do every single podcast with remember, be authentic, get the fuck out.
I never quit because I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up. I bet when I land, they gonna tell me it's luck again.